All right, folks, we got an audience. We're going live right now. All right, you guys hear me okay? All right, hi everybody. Okay, so we're in the midst of a drought in California, folks, and I'm hoping that there's going to be some way out of this, but it doesn't look like it. Governor Brown signed a law not too long ago that's going to limit Californians' water usage to 50 gallons a day per person. Now, let me explain something to you about how dangerous this is. Because there are countries in the world where water is not even available to a lot of people, because the governments have been run by complete criminals who have stolen all the money that has been earmarked for infrastructure. Now, we know there are these countries all over the place, folks, but what's so concerning about this is we know California is the model for Agenda 21, ladies and gentlemen. And we are living in Agenda 21 in its infancy in California right now. The biggest problem that we face in California to date is water restrictions, because the lack of rain has given the logic and rationale amongst our leaders that water is a scarce commodity, when in fact there's limitless amounts of water deep under the ground. I won't go into too much detail, but I'm going to ask all of you a question about the water that's very, very deep under the ground and the almost limitless amounts of it. And I want to ask if any of you know why we have tides in the ocean, and yet in the Great Lakes we don't have tides. You know, that puzzled me for a long time. And what we've got going on now, folks, is a situation where we have the government telling us how much water we could use per person per day. And the fact of the matter is, we have a limitless supply of water we're not being allowed to have access to. That's Agenda 21, ladies and gentlemen. And water's key, because you can't live without water. You can't have a food supply without water. You cannot have a standard of living without water. And I'm here to tell you, folks, it's under attack. Now, I want you to ponder that question about why we don't have tides in the Great Lakes. I mean, you have some areas in the world where the tides are 20, 30 feet from high tide to low tide. And on the west coast of California, the tides range from 6 to 7 feet. On a good day, there's quite a swing there. But the Great Lakes, they don't have tides, and there's a reason for that, and we'll go into that, but not right now. Now, the deal is, we have a situation in California where they've limited the amount of water to 50 gallons a day. And you know why that is? It has nothing to do with the drought, folks. It has everything to do with controlling us. Primary water, folks, you need to look into it. It's out there. There is truth out there to this. There are several people that have come forward. Scientists, hydrologists have come forward decades ago explaining this phenomenon. What we have in California is nothing more than a tyrannical plantation that is becoming a slave kill grid. And I'm here to tell you that if we don't change what's happening in California, then you have this to look forward to. Now, what's going on in California is going to be the model for the rest of the country. Agenda 21 is a binding consortium of ideas and international bodies that has decided to dictate policy on land use, resource allocation, and even goes as far as discussing population levels. And I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that these people mean business. Now, let's talk about the water restrictions in California. For years, I have discussed why we haven't had any rain. I've lived in California my whole life. And as a child, I remember watching the winter come and the rains would come. They'd begin in October, and for Thanksgiving we'd have rain, Christmas we'd have rain, and January we'd have rain, and February we'd have the wettest months. And, you know, March we get a little, April we get a little, May kind of trickled off. Get a few monsoonal systems come through in the summer in July and August. But now it doesn't rain at all, folks. Now it doesn't rain at all. And the reason is because they have been spraying all this aerial spraying in the sky. They hit these massive amounts of dispersed metallic nano compounds that are being sprayed at the high altitudes with wireless infrastructure, such as these NEXRAD radar installations, and there's some other facilities that are involved in weather modification as well. But what Governor Brown did by signing that law is he actually has guaranteed that the weather modification is going to continue, because he has basically gone on record and stated that they are expecting the drought to continue. And when they make that kind of statement, that means they are going to continue the drought. So what can we expect in California? Well, if you think you can get by with 50 gallons of water a day, more power to you. But I can tell you right now that we're going to have some hygiene issues that are going to become an issue, because people aren't going to be showering and flushing their toilets. But more importantly, as they get into discussing the outdoor water restrictions, that is what I want to touch on, because that is where I believe the death knell to our civilization lies. You see, it's always been assumed that we have access to water as long as we pay for it. And that's been the case since I was a young child. I've never known that water was ever in short supply, because everywhere I ever went as a child involved going to oceans and lakes and rivers. And it seems like these rivers have a source that just don't seem to ever end, and that's the case. They come from the ground. And it comes back to this question as to why we have a situation where we have tides in the ocean, but not on the Great Lakes. And that is a little mystery that I would like to solve for you, I guess, right here and now. And the fact is that we are actually going up, the continents actually are on top of massive amounts of water. And it is not the water that is being moved by the force of the moon, but rather the continents themselves going up and down on this bed of water that it sits on. The reason the Great Lakes don't have tides is because the Great Lakes are landlocked bodies of water that don't sit on anything but land. There is so much water under the ground, folks. And there's going to be a lot more water coming your way if you're not in California, because they're going to divert all of the rain from the west coast. They're going to move the jet stream around to where they're going to pass over the Sierras, and it's going to come down, dumping into the Rockies, into the Great Plains, and into the Gulf Coast region. You're going to get all our moisture, and that's going to wreak havoc on the rest of the nation. But I keep going off on these tangents, but I have to point these things out, because as they continue to modify the weather here, dry us out, that means the deluges are going to double in these other areas, and possibly the area you live in. Now, so they're going to go to 50 gallons a day for water restrictions on the indoor usage. So you can guarantee that people are not going to wash dishes. The restaurants aren't going to be doing their due diligence with their rinsing of their plates and utensils. And on top of this, we have a ban on plastic straws that's coming. So that virtually ensures that you will have your lips on cups and glasses in restaurants that have had thousands of lips on them before, whereby you can acquire the the herpes simplex 2 virus and hepatitis and all kinds of other things. You don't want to put your lips on other people's cups or glasses, folks. Use a straw. Straws are sanitary and hygienic. And for those of you who drink soda, which I strongly advise against, I strongly suggest that you fight the straw ban or stock up on as many of them as possible, because the soda is going to take the enamel off your teeth, especially your front teeth, if you drink soda from a cup, can, or glass without a straw. So what we have going on is a situation in California where they're going to restrict the indoor water usage to make your life very unclean and uncomfortable. And for those of you who own homes or properties, you're not going to be able to keep your landscape alive, folks. And this is the problem. This is the problem, and I believe this is the agenda, because what they're after is access to limit the amount of greenery and food production that we have currently access to now. And one of the things that we can guarantee is the more trees and the more greenery we have between our homes and the public rights-of-way, the less likely these 5G transmission systems are going to be able to kill us. Because trees and green shrubs block the millimeter wave systems. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that the governor signing this bill, which guarantees the extension of the drought, which guarantees the extension of the weather modification, will have the net result of destroying the greenery and the trees. Now, food control genocide is another aspect to all of this. And I can assure you that what is coming